Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty Show. And today we're going to dive into some recent trades that have happened in my leagues and go over them and analyze them and see if one or the other league mates needs a little help in dealing in the leagues that I'm in. So before that, I want to touch on an exciting announcement. Tonight, we're going to be going live on Tigbits. It's a show out of Baton Rouge. They're with the Bubba Army, myself, and co host Matt English. We're both going to be aboard there. Should be a good time tonight. That show starts at 7 p.m. Again, that's on Tigbits. Matt and I will be joining about 15 to 20 minutes into the show. So check that out. And now we'll get rolling. And we also have a great announcement on Sleeper. They added the auto sub feature, which allows you to place a player from your bench that could be used as a sub for any of your starters who happen to be placed with the out tag for a game. So let's say that you have Christian McCaffrey and he's a game time decision Sunday night, but you have, I don't know, Najee Harris on your bench. You can place Najee Harris as your sub for Christian McCaffrey if McCaffrey happens to not play. And well, that could be a situation that comes up week one because of McCaffrey's current calf issue. So I definitely say look into it for all of your sleeper leagues that are managed lineup leagues. It's a great feature. I've used it in a 16-man league that I'm in for years. Unfortunately, that one is still on CBS Sportsline. And so for us to implement it, it meant us having to type it in on a message board. We had a thread going year long where guys would just simply say, McCaffrey out, Najee in. So that was one way. It didn't automatically, obviously, it didn't automatically switch it for you. So the commissioner had to go in and make those changes. But by doing that, it really helped us continue to lead lives outside of fantasy football. Though we all love this great game of fantasy football, we do have lives going on outside of it. And so sometimes, when you have those say 3:30 games or 4:30 Eastern time games, the late Sunday games, you aren't able to rush to your phone or computer and make a change if somebody is a late scratch. And so the way I play, I don't like winning a game because somebody got a late scratch and got a zero in their lineup. Okay. Whether it's a paid league or free league, I don't want to be winning games just because of that. Like I want to be playing against the team's full lineup. All right. So I'm not I'm not in it to win by some, you know, crazy cheat code almost by having one extra starting player in the lineup because somebody was a late scratch that obviously he would have pulled out and put in somebody else. I mean, everybody deserves to have a full lineup. Now, if you're in best ball, you obviously can avoid that altogether, but many of still like to play the regular lineup leagues. And so this is a great feature. I encourage you all to, whether you're the commissioner, just implement it and explain it. If you're not a commissioner, I highly recommend you to talk to your commissioner and have him implement it before the beginning of this season. So, all right, let's get into the trades. So, we're going to start off in my bottom line league, and that one is a 12-team PPR X tight end premium league. We have start 10. We have the Red Rocket Express, which is Matt English. He's dealing with Scoopadopoulos in this trade, and Matt was able to acquire Will Levis, along with Dontavian Wicks. And in turn, he gave up his 26th first, as well as Spencer Rattler, over to Scoopadopoulos. So, analyzing this deal, Scoopadopoulos he took over an orphan in this league, and he's been quickly turning over the roster, grabbing lots of draft picks and young players. Now, being in a rebuild, you might find it odd that he went ahead and here's the deal. You might find it odd that he went ahead and traded two younger players in Will Levis and Dontavian Wicks if he's in a rebuild. But sometimes when you're in a rebuild and you're looking at it as maybe a 2-year window for your rebuild, like he's probably looking at this like, yeah, I know I'm not competing in 24, probably not competing in 25 either. So I just want to scoop up as many draft picks right now as possible and hopefully hit on a couple of waiver wire type assets. So I see the viewpoint from Scoopadopoulos in this deal. I do love it for our buddy Matt. The Red Rocket Express here gets Will Levis basically for a first, and then you can toss up Spencer Rattler and Dontavian Wicks, whichever one you want. I would say Wicks is definitely, in my opinion, more valuable. So I would definitely take the Matt English side of this deal. Don't know that I'd be doing it if I was rebuilding, so that's why I understand Scoopadopoulos's end of it. But I've been high on Will Levis all off season. I've been pounding the table on the Titans' new offense with new head coach Brian Callahan coming over from the Cincinnati Bengals, bringing that offense in. I think that they'll be throwing the ball a lot, at least trying to. And so I see great numbers coming for Will Levis. He is one guy who, right now he's going anywhere between whatever, round 6 to 8 in a startup, a 12-team startup. And he's someone that could, being as young as he is, he could if he has a great season, he could jump up to who knows the second or third round in startups next off season. So we'll see how the season goes for Mr. Mailman there, Will Levis. I am aboard the Levis train though, and so I do like Matt English's side in this deal. All right. Next trade up here, it was in a 53-man best ball league. So this league here, little background on this league. We wanted to try something new, and we had done a couple leagues uh, that had some IDPs in them, and we wanted to implement basically represent what a real NFL team is. All right. And so this is a 53-man best ball. You start 11 offensive, 11 defensive players. And so we made it best ball. So you didn't have to manage it quite as much. Trying to find the trade here so I can show you guys. Here we go. There it is. All right. So I'm going to show you right here. It's going to be on the side of the page here, but you can see right here. Okay, so the deal was Foss and Matt English once again. And Foss received Theo Johnson and Devonta Smith, and in return gave Kyle Pitts and a 26th third over to Matt English. So Pitts and Devonta Smith are pretty close in this deal, and then you got a 26th third going for Theo Johnson. That's how I look at it. Now, Foss was left with Chigo Kwanku and some others at tight end after dealing away Kyle Pitts. So I would I don't know. he didn't have great receivers either. So, I mean, he kind of left himself hanging at receiver after the draft. So I don't blame him going out and getting Devonta Smith. All in all, this is a pretty even deal right now. I do like the prospects, though, of Kyle Pitts going into this season. I think the hype for the Atlanta offense kind of died down after the draft, and now we're into August, and I don't quite hear as much hype about this Falcons offense as I was earlier in the offseason, but it is still there. This offense is going to be slinging it around the yard. They are going to be potent. You are going to see plenty of targets for Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan. This is going to be an exciting fantasy offense for us all. So if I had to pick one side, I would lean Matt English. But again, with Foss Boss's roster, it wasn't a terrible deal on his end either. All right. So next up, we're going to dive over to the Crash and Smash IDP Best Ball League. And this one, we had a deal that I just completed not too long ago. Let me see if I can find it here so I can bring it up for you guys. Okay, there we go. Let's get this screen up for you. All right. So here we go. I acquired a 25 first from Inadmissible, and in return, Inadmissible got Aaron Rodgers, a 26 second, and a 27 third from me. All right. So I ended up at the end of this draft, this best ball, I ended up having four quarterbacks. And so I definitely had Aaron Rodgers here as expendable, inadmissible. Did have Garrett Wilson on a roster. So some might say that I could have pushed a little harder and gotten more from him, but I'm more than happy gaining that 25 first. Inadmissible on the other side also is happy in this deal. He was able to get three assets, and that's big for an IDP best ball format. And as well as one of them being Aaron Rodgers, which was a quarterback, and he needed help at the QB position. He only had two on his roster. All right. So that's how I look at that. I'm happy. He's happy. Win-win for both of us, right? That's how we like to see our dynasty trades go on. I'm not out here to try and rip people off. You know, it does happen once in a while. And for those who get it, more power to you. But ideally, I mean, when I'm looking to put together a trade, I usually start by heading over to Dynasty Daddy. This is a innocent plug for them. But Dynasty Daddy has a great setup for looking at where you stand in your league. And it really helps with trades because it gives you a breakdown of where teams stand positionally with with their value. And so you can see, like, if you're stacked at wide receiver, somebody else is stacked at running back, and you're looking to upgrade at running back, that would be a great trade partner for you, just as an example. But now we're going to head over to my Dynasty Land League and give you a couple of trades here. We can just see both of them. So I'll bring them up right here for you guys to look at. Now, this is a 12-team start 9 Superflex tight end premium league. And first off, we've got the Fantasy Godzilla. Fantasy Godzilla there may poke you. He went ahead and he acquired Zay Flowers in a 25 third and gave Brandon Ayuk over to NLS 2K 24. And so NLS is right on the brink of contention. So he wanted to have more of a sure thing in Brandon Ayuk. And in turn, he just threw a 25 third on top of Zay Flowers. So I like that deal for NLS 2K. Ayuk, you know, The trade rumors are all over the place for Ayuk. I don't know if he's going to Pittsburgh or not. I don't know if he's going to end up somewhere else. But for the time being, he's still with the Niners. And in my opinion, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the Niners to deal Ayuk. They're going after a Lombardi trophy. I mean, to give up one of your major assets in going after a Lombardi trophy just doesn't seem to make sense. It just seems like both teams are playing cat and mouse with each other, both sides of this, with Brandon Ayuk, his agent, and John Lynch and the 49ers brass. I just think they're both playing each other right now. I do think Ayuk will get a deal done. Maybe it's only a 3-year deal, but I think that something's going to get done here before the season starts. The Niners have been known to do this in the past with their stars and their big contracts. Think about Bosa a couple of years ago, and so on. So that's where I see this whole Brandon Ayuk saga ultimately ending. And so for NLS 2K, it's definitely an upgrade from Zay Flowers. Not that Zay Flowers couldn't have a great season, and Brandon Ayuk have a bad season and Flowers ends up outscoring him. But the odds on that happening, I would say, would be at about 20-25%. So there's a much better odds for Brandon Ayuk to be a true difference maker for NLS 2K as he was last season. For everybody who owned Ayuk, if you're out there, that Ayuk made a difference in your lineups last season. We also got another deal in that league that went down. This was back on June, but I can still bring this up because it's an important deal. Um, you had Is This DFS and Ramsack Nation doing a deal involving Josh Palmer for a 26-second. Is This DFS is the one who acquired Palmer in this deal. Love this deal for him. A 26-second is the going rate for him right now. So it was a fair deal on both ends. I think that Ramsack uh, just had some excess at the wide receiver position. So for him to be able to scoop up a second for Palmer, when he probably, I don't know that he would have used him too much this season. I think it's a good deal for both sides. Uh, don't hate it either way, right? So we're looking into our other deals that I've got, going to head over to my 3143 league. And in this league, we had a deal between Chupis and Kyle K. Ripel. And so let's see here. Let's find this deal. 3143 is a 10-team Superflex tight end premium. It's start 10. So being a 10-team league, it wasn't all that large. And this wasn't a huge deal. We had another deal in this league, but first I want to address this deal because it includes Sam Darnold, and we all heard the news yesterday that JJ McCarthy will be out for the season. Unfortunate, he tore his meniscus, and rather than just trimming it up and getting him back in 4 to 6 weeks, they decided to do the full repair, and that timetable will take him out of the 2024 season and mean that Mr. Sam Darnold will be in command of the Vikings offense with Kevin O'Connell and the heavy pass volume offense they've got there in Minnesota. And so even with the Jordan Addison scare yesterday, which ended up just being a sprained ankle, so Addison shouldn't be out too long. His prospects for making it back week 1 are kind of up in the air, but it's definitely not something that he's going to miss extensive time for. So Darnold should have that weapon back. He should get Hawkinson back at some point, I would guess, some point after the bye. Their bye is week 6, and so Hawkinson should be back around that time. So Uh, Chupas here, Stairway to Evans. He got Sam Darnold in return. He gave up a 25 fourth and 26 third to K. Ripel. And I don't mind this deal for either side. Ripel was just looking to unload uh, an excess asset here, and Chupas was looking for extra depth at the quarterback position. Now, if we scroll down a little here, we can see the other deal that Chupas pulled off. This one was with the Fantasy Reaper, and this was a much bigger deal. This one the Reaper told me he had been working on all off season trying to acquire Justin Jefferson, and he finally found the right time to go out and get him in a shallow format. I don't mind this deal so much. The Fantasy Reaper is a heavy contender in this league, and so giving up DK Metcalf, Travis Etienne, and a 25 first, which is my first actually from this league, and I'm also a contender, so you could look at it as a mid to late first, probably. I would just call it mid because you don't want to overly assess the value when you're acquiring a pick. But I don't mind this side at all for Chupas. If you're going to give up a stud like Justin Jefferson, you want to be getting something in return. Here, he got three very solid assets in DK Metcalf, Travis Etienne, and a 25 first. So I don't mind it at all. I understand the Fantasy Reaper wanting to go out and get Jefferson in this shallower format. So I kind of like it for both sides. If I had to lean one way, though, even in a shallow format, I would lean the DK Travis Etienne and 25 first side of it. So um, next up, we've got a deal in my Turtle League. And let me squeeze over to that for you guys here. And back in full for you guys. We'll get over to the Turtle League so we can show you this deal. This one, Turtle League is a 12-team Superflex tight end premium start 10 format. And in this league, we had, let's see here. Yes, this is the deal. All right. So let me bring it up here for you guys. Now, this was just a smaller deal, but it's fair noticing. So right here we have so this was between the Turtle Squad there and my Supercharged Dog Pound team. And so I acquired Roshan Johnson and a 26 third. In return, gave up Elijah Mitchell and Sam Howell. So looking at it on the surface, you could say Elijah Mitchell and Roshan Johnson are pretty much cancel each other out, and the 26th third and Sam Howell probably cancel each other out. Now, Sam Howell is somebody who was on my roster and was just excess, and so I really wanted to just get whatever I could for him. So getting a 26th third for him was I was more than happy to take. And then Roshan Johnson, I just like more than Elijah Mitchell. I think that Roshan is the best blocking back in that Bears backfield. So if you get more of a uh, ambiguous backfield, should I so to speak, with the Bears, where there's no defined roles between Swift, Roshan, and Khalil Herbert, and then maybe you throw in an injury to either Swift or Herbert, you could see an excessive role there for Roshan Johnson, and that's what I was looking at here from that perspective. Whereas Elijah Mitchell is just simply a straight handcuff, doesn't get much work aside from a CMC injury. And so I was just kind of betting on Roshan Johnson here. All right. So it's just a little deal. You know, sometimes you need to make these deals just to just to make a small bet on one player versus another. And this one, I was just betting on Roshan Johnson versus Elijah Mitchell. Now, the opposite side here, Turtle Squad, they have CMC, so I totally understand wanting to grab that handcuff there if CMC were to go down. Elijah Mitchell definitely possesses top 10 potential any week where he is the main guy for the Niners offense. All right. So next up, I've got another trade. We got two more that I want to go over. And so let me go find this deal. This one is in my Mojo League, and this one is also a 12-team Superflex tight end premium, start 10. And so we have in this one, it was Frosties and the Fantasy Reaper. And so this one's right up top here. Let me bring it up for you guys. Right. There we go. So we had Frosties and the Fantasy Reaper here doing a deal. And this one had Stephon Diggs and a 25-second going over to Frosties. And in return, the Fantasy Reaper got George Pickens. So he got much younger at wide receiver, had to throw in a 25-second for it. I don't mind that. I'm not totally in love with Diggs going to the Texans. As I've mentioned before, I see it more of like a Antonio Brown situation when he went to Tampa. Yeah, he had a few good weeks here and there, but ultimately I do think that Tank Dell and Nico Collins will keep their target volume relatively similar to what they had last year. This deal of Diggs getting there is just going to help CJ Stroud more so than either Diggs or Collins. On the other side of it, George Pickens is what, 6, 7 years younger than Stephon Diggs. So I definitely don't hate that. Don't love Pickens in the Arthur Smith offense, but at the same time, you're getting probably a top 25 receiver with potential to be higher because let's all remember, Arthur Smith was dealing with Desmond Ritter and Taylor Heineke as his quarterbacks last season. And as much as you may not like Russell Wilson, he's still definitely a better quarterback, him or Justin Fields, if he gets the job. Either of those guys are better than Desmond Ritter or Heineke. So Pickens, I don't think that, you have Deontay Johnson leaving town. So Pickens is the only main wide receiver there. And you have Pat Freiermuth. I mean, somebody's going to have to catch the 480 to 500 targets that these quarterbacks are still going to be throwing. Because even that was the lowest in the league last season. So Pickens is still in line for a good 125 targets, in my opinion. He's not an amazing route runner, but maybe he's worked on that this offseason. And, plenty of guys get better at running routes as they progress in the NFL. So I don't mind this deal from either side. If I had to lean one, though, I would probably be the Fantasy Reaper, I would say. All right. Then we've got one final deal for you guys. This one was smaller. This was in my Lemmy's Dynasty League. This is with a few people from overseas. Shout out to them. And let's bring up this deal here. This one went down about a month ago. Just wanted to bring it up now because of the implications now with the Patriots offense. So the Patriots offense, now we don't know who their quarterback is going to be, but we do know that Ramondre Stevenson is going to be the bell cow. We know that Antonio Gibson is there and he'll steal a little bit of the targets from him in the passing game. But with Stevenson getting that big contract, we know he's the guy for the Patriots for the foreseeable future. Steve here was looking to add to his running back room. He really only had one strong running back, so this definitely helped him out. Foss didn't need Stevenson. He was pretty loaded at running back, so I'd call this a completely fair trade. 25 second for Ramondre Stevenson is decent value. Thing with Stevenson is it's hard for me to see that after this season, like the 2025 off season, it's hard for me to see his value shift anywhere differently. Like he'd have to have a monster touchdown amount, like a 10 touchdown season, which I don't think will happen in New England for him to even be close to being considered for a first round pick. And he'd have to like have a major injury early on in the season, coupled with him looking like garbage for him to fall down to a third round value. So Ramondre's got pretty stable value here. Typical running back on a bad team, still should get looks in the passing game, and he is the main guy there. We don't know who the quarterback will be for the majority of this season. Drake May will take over at some point, but as far as starting out the season, it looks like it'll be Jacoby Brissett. Joe Milton could get into the mix somehow there. We all know that he's been looking good in camp. But that said, Drake May was the number 3 overall pick. So you know that the Patriots are going to give him some game time at some point this season. All right. So that's all I've got for you guys today with trades. Remember that we've got Matt and I showing up on Tigs Bits later tonight. Please check that out. It's going to be at 7 p.m. live tonight on Tigs Bits. Also, check us out on Patreon. Got our Patreon up. I've got the Dynasty rankings all there for you. I update them regularly. So if there's any major injuries or movement, I do update those as fast as possible. All right. So thanks for joining us today. We'll have more content out for you this week. Never stop working.